Three big giants, each wanting a slice of the market share. My thoughts on each of these grading companies coming right up. What's up YouTube, Car Boss here, back in another video where we talk about cars, money, investing. Today we're going to discuss grading companies, right? So it's the first time that I actually discuss on the three so-called the big three in terms of the grading companies. We have BGS, we have PSA, and we have SGC, right? The kind of motivation for this video is basically on the news that broke out on HGA yesterday that it got acquired by Armstrong International. For those who don't know, HGA is, I would say, the pioneer into AI grading or computer vision, and it was supposed to revolutionize grading, right, using more accurate computer data grading as opposed to a more subjective using eye appeal and that kind of old kind of grading methodologies, right? So the news came out that it got acquired by a company called Armstrong International, which is technically an engineering company. A lot of people are speculating what's the relationship between Armstrong and HGA. I don't think anybody has actually discovered that yet, but in my personal opinion, I think Armstrong International is just kind of like the stepping stone for HGA, kind of like transitioning out. Maybe Armstrong is actually interested in the computer vision technology itself, but perhaps part of the deal is just to fulfill all that 60,000 car backlog that supposedly HGA has before they can fully acquire outright the ownership of that tech, or maybe they plan to flip the tech to another of these big companies here. We do not know, right? But all I know is, based on what I feel and what I think, that particular sale is not going to impact anybody at the moment, especially these three big guys here, right? So the purpose of this video is kind of like to also again address several DMs and some comments that I had in the past about what are my thoughts on the different grading companies and where do I think that each of them stand and how do I rank all of them. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to rank like, for example, PSA is better than Beckett or Beckett is better than SGC. I'm not going to do anything like that because I truly believe that each of these grading companies has their own individual niche and has their own individual markets that they service to, and of course definitely have their own followers, and loyal customers to the extent, right? So I personally, I'm coming in from an investment point of view. I don't have a personal view on why I like each of them better, right? More of why I think that where do they stand individually in their respective markets and respective spaces, and why do they appeal in those spaces, okay? So I'm gonna go from left to right here, right? So I have BGS here, I have PSA in the middle, and I have SGC at the end. I'm not saying that, again, it's not like, from worst to best or best to worst, doesn't matter, okay? But it's more of the chronology of how I actually got myself familiarized into this grading space here. So prior to, I think, 2016, all right, I'm actually coming from Magic the Gathering background. I'm a player for the last 20 years. Not really familiar with the grading space, right? So I've always been dealing with raw cards because raw cards in Magic are meant for playing. And even though I've dealt with several vintage cards, okay, I've never really considered about grading. But of course, with the emergence of counterfeits, and stuff like that, so there is a little bit of pressure to get stuff authenticated and graded. So back then, with Magic the Gathering, the go-to grading company, even though PSA was in existence even during that time, the go-to company was Beckett, because Beckett did provide authentication. That's one thing, and also there was a need for the subgrades because Magic the Gathering had a lot to do with the black borders, the edges, and stuff like that. So Beckett was the go-to back then for Magic the Gathering, and we only talked about Beckett, right? So again, there was two camps, I would say, between Beckett and PSA, but a lot of Magic the Gathering investors and collectors lean towards Beckett because of the labels, the harder cases, the subgrades. So there are all sorts of reasons we have discussed. I think many people have discussed on the merits of Beckett over PSA in many other videos, right? So I'm not going to talk about it, but the demographics for Magic collectors and investors lean towards Beckett because they just provide just the additional things that they needed, in order for them to the qualities that they have for their investments, right? So this investment in this Power 9 Beta Power 9 Mox Pro is no different. So I got it in Beckett because this was the generally accepted graded card, I would say, right? Grading company for Magic. There is some push for PSA of the late 2 years that PSA 10 slabs for Magic cards kind of like hold a trump over 9.5s even in the quad kind of subgrades. Okay, but that's Magic, right? So one thing I learned was when I actually transitioned to sports cards, I think that if you guys look into my video in the Buy the Number series, right, the very first sports card that our NBA card I actually invested was a BGS 9.5 Giannis, right? And that was coming in from directly from the Magic scene, right, whereby I thought that, okay, BGS was kind of like still a thing incomparable to PSA, but it was quite funny to actually see a 20 to 25% discount for Beckett 9.5s versus a PSA 10. I didn't really understood at the point in time, but of course, 2 years diving into the sports card market, there is a bigger appreciation for PSA cards. And again, it's not about PSA being a better grading company versus Beckett. Some may argue so, but it's just a generally accepted grading company that's used in that market. And just looking at these two examples alone, right, when you're operating in that kind of space, whether it's in Magic or whether it's in sports, you kind of have to embrace that particular grading company to be the de facto grading company of choice for investors if you are actually operating in that market and trying to make money and trying to flip cards in that space, because that's the grading company that people are going to. It's very difficult when you coming in from, let's say, a Beckett background and trying to penetrate into the sports card market and still going in on your arms with Beckett cards, whereas most people are preferably trading in PSA slab. So there is a mindset that you need to change, right, in order to transition from here to here. And I think that a lot of people fail to do that because they've been so loyal in a sense to a particular brand, and they kind of like psych themselves that this brand is better because they have better slabs or better quality, better grading review, they're more accurate, and all those kind of reasons, right? But you can't be clouded by all those kind of things and just focus on what the market wants, right? I always talk about understanding your audience and what the audience needs. And the audience wants Beckett for Magic and the audience wants PSA for sports. That's where you actually have to go to and get a full understanding of that particular grading company within that market, as opposed to try to challenge yourself on why you think that one is better than the other. Okay, so coming on to the third one, which is SGC, guys. So this is the I wouldn't say the newest guy on the block, but this is the guy that's actually making waves, trying to make waves here. And the SGC had a lot of I would say ups and downs in the last 2 years, right? Of course, during the peak of the pandemic, when PSA and Beckett had to really slow down the operations, so in PSA's case, shutting down for quite a fair bit, SGC has stepped in to try to fill the void, okay, and the price point has been, and it still is appealing to a lot of people. And again, SGC has their own draw, right? So they have this black tuxedo slabs, which I actually adore, right? You look, see in this Magic, this Deadpool 1992 X-Men card, the color of the Deadpool actually pops out in the black slab. No doubt, some people have criticized, there's a little bit things here and there, like for example the label, and of course we talk about secondary value. That's the big thing for investors, right? The secondary value for SGC slabs, compared to PSA, be if you talk about sports or even like Marvel, right? It's kind of like it's just way under, right? Nobody knows why. It's supply and demand, right? So you can't fault SGC. You can't tell them saying that you can't say that the quality of the grading is not as on par with PSA or with Beckett and stuff like, or the quality of slabs, because their quality of slabs is actually good. I can't say the same for HGA because of some of the news that being able to crack with a simple screwdriver, but definitely quality of slab and the look of the slab, be it just a little personal pet peeve on the label. Ultimately, SGC does look good, but why doesn't it command that same kind of value compared to PSA and Beckett? It's nothing, no fault of SGC. It's just where the market wants. It's exactly the point that I raised earlier with BGS and with PSA. That's effectively where the market is. So each of these grading companies kind of like have to carve a niche for themselves, right? If they want to become the champion in those spaces, whereas Magic has been predominantly by BGS, sports has been PSA, and SGC is trying to make waves in both markets, right? Not so much on trading card games, but definitely into sports, right? So it's kind of been an uphill climb for SGC, I feel. So even for me, right, I choose not to invest in SGC cards because the audience is just far limited compared to this. A lot of people are pro SGC because number one, of course, the slabs are cheaper, right? It's cheaper to acquire. So I definitely like SGC from a PC perspective. That, like I said, they definitely look good as a slab and on a display, which I have this Deadpool actually on my display. But trying to flip, it's a bit challenging. I think I did make a comment in my last video in the Goldin auction where a 2017 Royal Foil Spider-Man Peter Parker, a raw sells for about 2,500, and an SGC 10, which is one of the better grades that you can get for SGC slab, only goes for $3,000, right? So just a very tiny bump from something for so-called considered almost a perfect grade. Whereas if that was a PSA 10, you know, that 2,500 could be easily be $5,000-$6,000, who knows, right? So again, it's just a perception. It's no knock on the quality of the grading company or of the slabs itself. It's just what the audience wants or what the market wants. And I think that before any of you invest in any of these slabs, you know, for the purposes of flipping, right, that's something seriously to consider on how much capital that you plan to put in, and of course where you intend to sell these slabs, because there are some people whereby they're trying to force the issue, trying to force the SGC, this is the way to go, this is the one, this is up and coming, it's just, they're going to overtake PSA and all the kind of things, the self-belief that they have, right? Kind of like you gotta cut away all of those thoughts and just focus on what's in front of you. That's what I always think, right? So if the market really demands for PSA, that's the way you should focus, no matter if you don't like the look of the slab, you don't like the simple label, you don't like all the back press, you don't like how expensive PSA is and stuff like that. But that's how the market operates, and you just gotta find ways to operate within those markets, right? All right, so that's basically my thoughts on these three grading companies. And in conclusion, right, I don't have any preference, right? I don't say that PSA is the king and Beckett is the queen and stuff like that. It's just that each of them operate differently, and they cater for a different kind of niche, right? So depending on, as an investor, depending on what niche you're trying to service, are you going for the collector niche? Are you going for the general investor niche? Okay, are you going to the magic market space, right? And that's determined on what kind of grading companies that you need to be familiarized with in terms of the quality and in terms of the pricing. All right, that's all I have for today. Thanks guys for watching. Do like, subscribe, and catch my other videos in the future. Thanks for watching again. Cowboys out.